What's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video. Real quick, I'm going to preface this by saying I'm really sick at the moment. You probably hear it in my voice. There's probably going to be cuts throughout this video as I take a break to have a coughing fit. I'm just not feeling great, but if you know me, I hate going a few days without dropping content for y'all, which is the case as I'm recording this video. I don't know if this is going to get out tonight as I'm recording it prior to Game 3 of the NBA Finals, if it's going to come out a couple days later. I'm not really sure. It really just depends if I'm feeling up to editing it after I finish recording, but regardless, I'm going to try and power through because I have a lot to talk about with the NBA draft. I want to drop some coverage leading up to the draft itself, whether that's a mock draft that'll probably come at some point, talk about some prospects, some fits I like for certain teams, or as is the case with this video, what's going to happen at the second overall pick, which is by far the most interesting selection in the draft in my opinion at this point. We all of course know what's going to happen at number one. We've known what's going to happen at number one for a long time up to this point. I mean, prior to the season even starting, you had Adam Silver practically begging teams not to tank outright ridiculously for Victor Wembanyama, which some squads did, and the Spurs end up winning that sweepstakes, getting the number one overall pick in the draft lottery. They're going to take Vic. There's not a question about it. There have been some people that are like, oh, you know, I might lean Scoot or this guy. It's Victor Wembanyama. He's a 7'5" guy with handles like a guard. He can shoot threes, shoot really over anybody. His defensive instincts are ridiculous. He is going to be one of the best players of this modern era, and he is in the conversations for the best draft prospect of all time. I don't know if he is or not. I'm not a draft prospect historian quite like that, but there is certainly a case when you take a look at how good he is, the tools that he has. If he stays healthy, he's going to dominate the league for years to come. I mean, when the draft lottery happened and the Spurs got the number one overall pick, ESPN flashed over to Brian Windhorst, who was chilling in Paris at 2:30 a.m. with Victor Wembanyama, just waiting to ask him, you know, how does it feel to be a San Antonio Spur? Are you excited to play under Greg Popovich? Like, that was like a month and a half before the draft is even going to happen, but at that point we already knew. We've known for so long that it's Vic at number one, and it makes complete sense. But at number two, things get really interesting. For me, I think the pick should be Scoot Henderson. And I think in most other drafts, Scoot would be the consensus number one overall guy. It's just because you've got Vic there at number one that Scoot is here at number two. And if I'm the Hornets, who got lucky and moved up in this lottery, I'm taking Scoot, no questions asked. Some people have questions about the fit with him and LaMelo Ball, which I think it could actually work pretty well. I think they've got skills that complement each other. And really, when you're in the position that the Hornets are, I'm a firm believer of going best player available. If you're drafting for fit at the second overall pick, you're making a big mistake. Now, maybe the Hornets like Brandon Miller more than Scoot Henderson, who is the other guy that's in the conversation, and the rumors are right now that Brandon Miller will be the pick for the Hornets at pick 2. Maybe it's a bit of a smokescreen or something like that, but maybe they like Brandon Miller a bit better at the second overall pick. I completely disagree, and I like Brandon Miller a lot as a prospect. I just think Scoot is another potentially generational guy. He's one of the best athletes we've ever seen at the guard position, drawing comparisons throughout the process to guys like Russell Westbrook, Derrick Rose, John Morant. He's a high-level playmaker. He's really crafty around the rim. His handle is ridiculous. He's got great defensive tools, even though he is a bit smaller at 6'2", so he'll probably never be a lockdown defender. I think he could be really solid at the guard position. He's just got basically everything you're looking for in a prospect. Really, the only thing that's shaky is the three-point shot, which I think he's got the tool and the work ethic to build on and get better as his time in the NBA goes on. And ultimately, I think Scoot will end up being a pretty solid three-point shooter. And if you combine that with the athleticism, the ability to get to and finish around the rim, the handle, the playmaking, the potential defensive upside, Scoot is going to be one of the best guards in the league for a really long time. And I'm a firm believer that he is clearly the number 2 overall guy in this draft. But according to reports, the Hornets really don't see it this way. They would rather go with Brandon Miller at the second overall pick, pairing him as a wing alongside LaMelo Ball as their lead guard. And I do like Brandon Miller a lot. I think even if they go with Brandon Miller, he's still going to be really good in this league. He showed some elite shot-making ability, some flashes of high-level shot creation as well off the dribble. He got better over the course of his season at Alabama as a finisher around the rim. I do worry a little bit about his frame, but I think he can bulk up and ultimately could probably be a pretty solid defender in this league. Brandon Miller, I still think is going to be really good. I just think Scoot Henderson has the potential to be like a generational type player. So that's been one of the big debates on NBA Twitter recently. Again, I'm pretty firmly in the camp of Scoot. I've seen a lot of people say no, Brandon Miller is the clear way to go at number 2. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. I'd love to hear y'all's opinions. Now, as is the case with all these pre-draft reports, we don't know if this is anything for sure. It could be a smokescreen that the Hornets are using to try and get somebody to trade up with them. It could also be them just trying not to let other teams know what they're up to. I mean, last year, right up until draft day, it seemed like kind of consensus opinion that Jabari Smith Jr. was going to go first overall to the Orlando Magic before on draft night, a few hours beforehand, we found out that no, it was Paolo who's going to go number 1 overall to the Magic. Chet stayed there at 2 with OKC, and then Jabari was at 3 for the Houston Rockets. Maybe we see a similar situation here where it seems like everything is saying that, hey, Brandon Miller is going to go 2nd overall to the Hornets until draft night, where an hour before we learned from Woj or Shams that actually Scoot's going to go number 2. They're just going to go with the kind of the consensus guy and stay put with what they have there. So maybe that's what ends up happening, and there's really not much drama whatsoever. But I think it's really fun to think about what could potentially happen if the Hornets do go Brandon Miller at number 2 and Scoot Henderson, who again I think would be the number 1 overall pick in most drafts, is available there at the number 3rd overall pick, where the Portland Trailblazers are hanging out and in a really weird spot. All the rumors are that the Blazers are looking to move that pick to build around Damian Lillard, who said in multiple interviews this offseason that he thinks they should move young talent in favor of more established guys to try and compete now, or at least that's what he wants to do. He doesn't want to be part of a rebuild, and that if the Blazers want to keep him, that's kind of what they have to do. And indications are that the Blazers want to keep building around Damian Lillard, so they could look to deal that 3rd overall pick, and if on draft night, that 3rd overall pick could potentially be used to select Scoot Henderson, a potentially generational guard prospect, Portland's line is going to be blowing up. So many teams are going to be calling saying, hey, we're going to offer you our star. We're going to start this rebuild. We want Scoot Henderson. What would you take for the 3rd overall pick? Things get really interesting for the Blazers in that position. Maybe it's a team like the Raptors who say, hey, we'll give you Pascal Siakam or OG Anunoby for this 3rd overall pick. Maybe even a combination of both if they throw in some of their young talent. Maybe it's a team like Chicago that's like, hey, we're willing to move on from a Zach LaVine and maybe some of our other guys on this roster for that 3rd overall pick. What does a trade look like there? Portland's going to have some options. So if I'm a Blazer fan, I am praying that the Hornets go with Brandon Miller there at the 2nd overall pick, because I think the value of that number 3 spot skyrockets immensely if Scoot is still available on draft night. And for that reason, I don't think we see the Blazers make a move with that pick until we get to the night itself. They're going to try and evaluate and see how much value they can actually get out of that selection if they do decide to move it. Or if you know me, I think the Blazers should trade Damian Lillard and build around the young core that they have now, especially if at pick 3, Scoot Henderson is there. If the Blazers are there, they can just take him, and maybe down the line, Dame's like, I don't want to really do this youth thing. I kind of want out. Okay, then you trade Damian Lillard, but you can still build around Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe, Anthony Simons as your young core of the future, whoever you get for Damian Lillard, whether it's young players or first-round draft picks. The Blazers would have an incredible start to their rebuild, one that rivals basically anybody else in the league. They'd be in such a good spot going forward. So if the Hornets go Brandon Miller there at number 2, things get really interesting, and it could impact the rest of the draft, because it's not just going to be the Raptors or the Bulls, 2 teams that I mentioned earlier, that are going to be trying to trade up. It's going to be everybody. I guarantee every single team will call the Blazers there at number 3 and say, what do you want from our team? We'll give you our 1st round pick, maybe 5, 6, 7 spots back, a ton of assets. What do you want for us to be able to go up and get a guy like Scoot? I really think it's going to be an arms race for teams trying to throw the kitchen sink at the Blazers to try and get Henderson there at number 3. Maybe a team like Houston at the 4th overall pick offers up some of the draft capital they got from Brooklyn in the Harden trade to the Blazers, saying, hey, we'll give you some more assets to build around Damian Lillard if they can't get a star that they quite like, and they move up to the 3rd overall pick to get Scoot as their franchise point guard, and despite getting screwed over by the draft lottery, they still end up walking away with one of the best prospects in this entire class. There are so many different ways that 3rd overall pick could go if Scoot doesn't go at number 2, which is why this is so interesting. Not only does it change the trajectory of the Charlotte Hornets themselves with who they take at 2, but it changes the trajectory of the Portland Trailblazers and a number number of other teams down the line who could be looking to move off of a star, start a rebuild with Scoot, could be looking to package some of their current draft picks to move up and make that one big selection that changes the trajectory of their franchise. There are so many ways it could go. So yeah, I kind of just want to take some time real quick to talk about one of the most interesting storylines leading up to the NBA draft, in my opinion. I can't wait to see what goes on. Of course, it's always fun with the draft to see who goes where and how these young players are going to change the trajectories of teams. But there could be some literally league-altering moves made within those first couple selections. I can't wait to see what happens. Let me know in the comment section below what you think happens with that third overall pick. And also, if you're the Blazers and Scoot Henderson is there, do you take him and start a rebuild, trading Damian Lillard away? Do you trade that third overall pick for a star or two to put next to Dame to try and make this thing into a championship contender and get him a ring? Do you maybe go the third route and you take Scoot Henderson, try and convince Dame to stay and build around those two guys, see how that works out? Let me know in the comment section below. I'd love to hear what you all have to say. And as always, I appreciate y'all watching a ton. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.